Hello once again, and welcome to another edition of the SaskAgToday.com Roundtable. We're joined by the Chief Agricultural Editor for SaskAgToday.com, Kevin Hursh, as well as the AgriNews Director for 620 CKRM in Regina, Ryan Young. I'm your host, Doug Falconer, Agriculture Director at GX94 Radio in Yorkton. And first off, Ryan, we were going to talk about the Agribition, and it wrapped up, of course, on Saturday, and sounds like they had a pretty good week down in Regina.
Yeah, it was absolutely. It was kind of a fun time over at Agribition. It was busy as all else, but that is par for the course for an event the caliber of Agribition. One of the things that also kind of stood out was if you noticed throughout the week, there was a lot of kids over at the event. There was a bunch of bus tours, but according to Sean Kindop, who's the CEO of the event, he said it could have been much more in previous years. They usually have about 10,000 kids that come through and check out Agribition, but this time around he thinks it was only about half that, so about 5,000. So there'll be conversations about how to get more kids over at Agribition. So we'll see where that goes, and we're just kind of waiting a little bit on final numbers, just in terms of attendance and other metrics as well. Reached out to the folks at Agribition, and they said that it should be coming out pretty soon, if not, excuse me, within next week or so.
I understand they were suggesting that it was transportation costs might have been part of the reason why there weren't so many kids at the Agribition this year. Does that surprise you with the cost of fuel right now, Kevin?
No, that's reality, I guess. It'll be interesting to see if Agribition come out with ways to support schools and encourage more schools, but budgets are only what they are in the education system to take students various places. So an interesting thing to see the number of students cut by that much in one year, and whether or not there are any measures that can help address that.
Something else we wanted to touch on, Ryan, was the fall calf run. And I know you spoke, I believe it was with Emily Schmidt from the Saskatchewan Ministry of Agriculture about cattle sales over the past week. And it looks like things are starting to slow down a bit.
Yeah, the fall cattle run is starting to kind of slow down here and kind of wrap up for another year as well. We kind of saw that with the number of cattle marketed around the province. I think this time around, with the latest update, it was around 18 or 19,000 head that were marketed, way down from the some 35, 36,000 the prior week. So that's a clear indicator that that's slowing down. But with that, though, the demand for excuse me, cough, annoying cough. Um, the demand for feeder cattle is still pretty high, and that's supporting prices as well, and the low supply of feeder cattle, obviously. And another factor that she mentioned that are keeping prices up as they were last week was related to more restrictions on the imports of Mexican feeder cattle coming into the U.S. So she figures that that might drive up demand for more Canadian feeder cattle going down south. But of course, with talk of any sort of trade between Canada and the U.S. nowadays, that also kind of brings up the thought of, well, what's going to happen with Trump administration 2.0 and the talk of all the tariffs. So I guess we'll see if that demand will continue moving forward.
Kevin, your thoughts on the high cattle prices that are continuing right now?
Sometimes during the fall calf run, you see people that market early get some of the best prices, and prices sort of tail off through the fall calf run. That's not seemed to be the case this year. Prices have in many cases remained strong or even strengthened through the fall calf run. So great times for the cattle industry. Turbulence or concerns about the new year, but right now the cattle industry is where the profit is at. They're doing very well.
Earlier this week, the Provincial Auditor for Saskatchewan released her report touching on a number of subjects, including farmland sales and how those are accounted for and whether or not there's much foreign ownership going on out there or not. And that's something you were following pretty closely, Kevin.
I talked with Tim Hammond of Hammond Realty about his experiences with this, and frankly, I'm surprised and a little bit disappointed with the newly re-elected Saskatchewan Party government and the new Agriculture Minister Daryl Harrison not taking the criticisms a little more seriously. There looks like there's a number of places where Farmland Security Board overview and asking for the declarations of ownership and following up and applying penalties if they don't get that information. And the speed at which they do their work, there were some really valid criticisms in the Provincial Auditor's report, and I would have thought that Daryl Harrison and the government would have taken those to heart more than they seem to in their reaction to the report.
You get any reaction on that as well, Ryan?
Yeah, I also kind of found the comments from Minister Harrison kind of baffling as well. Um, a couple of different things that stood out in particular when he was talking with reporters. One was the claim that the report confirmed that there was no foreign ownership of farmland in Saskatchewan whatsoever. But when you look at the report, you could kind of see a picture being painted of foreign entities attempting to buy farmland, and uh, whether how many of those, like say 40,000 land transactions are foreign owned. That's kind of unknown at this time, and you hear lots of rumblings around the farming community about foreign ownership. The second thing was he said that the board does its job very effectively, but again, the report kind of paints a different picture on how the board does its processes and reviews. It takes too long. They only review months after the fact. It's an ineffective, or rather inefficient process, and they don't really have any sort of enforcement or escalation tools or protocols in place if there's non-compliance with the Saskatchewan Farm Security Act. So that was a recommendation from the auditor to try and put those tools in place, but um, the minister, just being very opposite of what the report says, it's really kind of baffling. So much so that I even sent out a request for comment to the Ministry of Agriculture, saying, does he stand by those comments, or does he want to issue new comments in greater detail? And as of this recording on Friday, I haven't heard a response.
All right, and of course, the Agricultural Producers Association of Saskatchewan, otherwise known as APAS, held their annual general meeting in Regina this week, and they elected a new president. You had a chance to speak with them, Ryan.
Yeah, it really never sunk in for Bill Prybylski until he was going into a board meeting when I talked to him the other day. But, he's very excited for the coming year that's ahead for him as president. And of course, he had a little bit of, let's say, preparation for that, being the vice president of APAS for 6 years prior. So this was kind of, in a way, a natural progression towards the top job. And one of the things that he's focusing on in the short term here is more collaboration with, the crop development commissions, other farm groups, the Sask party government, as well as the opposition NDP. As he said that, we're all in this for the same reason. We want to make the ag sector a little better. And part of that objective includes more collaboration. So he's looking forward to that, and we'll see where he takes APAS from here.
Bill Prybylski, of course, is from the Willowbrook area, which is just about 20 minutes straight west of Yorkton. I've known him for a long time. Do you know him at all, Kevin? Have you ever met him?
Yeah, we intersected a little bit at Canada Grains Council meetings where he was representing APAS. So I've got to know and visit with Bill from time to time. I think he's a really good guy. I think it's tough for anybody in a position such as APAS presidency to have a handle on all of the issues, because there's a multitude of things going on, and they're also full-time producers. So, but I think Bill is an excellent candidate for the job, and got to wish him well.
And of course, on Thursday, Statistics Canada released their final numbers for crop production this year, and as expected, canola was down, but were many people expecting it to be that far down, Kevin?
It was the lower end of the range of expectations. When Statistics Canada did its model-based forecast in August, that was based on agroclimate data and satellite imagery, they called canola 19 million tons in Western Canada. And right away, people started saying that's just not the case. The crop may look like that, but the yield results coming from producers are not that way. So in this report, they interviewed 27,000 farmers across Canada and got actual survey results, and their numbers came in at 17.8 million tons, a dramatic drop. And we saw some effect on canola prices, some buoyancy in canola prices as a result of the StatsCan report, but still overhanging that market are fears of changes in biofuel policy, potential implementation of some sort of tariff by the Chinese as they look to cut Canadian canola imports. So there's still significant headwinds, but a major change in the supply outlook for canola as a result of the StatsCan report.
And Ryan, you had a chance to speak with Adam Picallo about how that report has affected canola prices this week.
Yeah, he was kind of having the expectation going into that report of the production estimate being lower than expected. He was kind of part of that camp. But in terms of the prices for this week anyway, for the ICE Futures January canola contract, it did well. It was up about $25 a ton on the week, where it was kind of around that $600 a metric ton mark. And that was kind of one factor with the rally in canola a little bit this week was the report. He felt that the lower production numbers were bullish on that front, and another major factor too was kind of support from the bean prices and soybean prices as well. They had a better week this week.
All right, and obviously a lot of producers out there are pretty happy, Kevin, to see those canola prices jump up right now.
Yeah, it's just a question of where it goes from here, and a lot of producers working on cropping plans for next year and crunching some numbers. And with the prices that are expected for next year, in some cases you can get new contract prices and you have some reality. Other cases you're taking a guess at what prices may be. But when you start crunching out next year's profitability picture and cropping option picture, man, there's a few and far between where you can find crops that look very good. Lentils being perhaps the one shining light out there, particularly green lentils, but otherwise it's a bit it's tough slugging. There'll be a lot of pencil pushing as producers try to figure out what to grow and what inputs to use and where they might be able to eke out a profit based on where prices are projected to be.
All right, well, that'll do it for this week's edition of the SaskAgToday.com Roundtable. On behalf of Chief Agricultural Editor Kevin Hursh and 620 CKRM Regina AgriNews Director Ryan Young, I'm GX94 Yorkton Agriculture Director Doug Falconer saying so long until next time